So my name is Angela Peacock. I'm a subject of the film Medicating Normal. I am also a volunteer doing outreach for the film, and we host conversations like this one. Today is our 18th interview, and today our guest is Tracey Higgins. Tracey Higgins lost 19 years of her life into the world of schizophrenia. She spent time in an orphanage, lived in many group homes, and even lived on the streets. She recovered from schizophrenia over 2 decades ago. A psychiatrist diagnosed her with paranoid schizophrenia at 14, but she had entered the terrifying world at 9. Her firsthand account tells her schizophrenia is not a brain disease, it's a survival mechanism. She didn't even use medication. She received no real help from mental health services, and that was a good thing. Back then, patients weren't forced to take medication, so she considers herself to be a lucky one. Today, she leads a good and meaningful life. Her message is simple, that nobody is beyond hope. Those drugs people are using to treat their distress might be the problem. She isn't against medication, they have their place, but to force people to use them for the rest of their lives is a tragedy. If she was going to use them, she would have used them during the recovery process. Currently, Tracey is working on her memoir called The Girl on the Bridge with her editor, and it will be out next month. So hi, Tracey. Thank you for joining me today. What do you think when you hear me read your biography like that?
I think it's great. It tells exactly the way it was.
Came a long way, right?
Yes, I have.
So I'm excited about this conversation. Tracey, do you want to just share a little bit about yourself? Maybe fill in the blanks of the bio and maybe how you are today?
Okay. To start with, I was 9. I experienced a very traumatic thing, and in order to cope and get through it, I went into the world of schizophrenia. And I remained there for 19 years. What else do I want to say? Years later, there was an incident that I had witnessed. I'm not going to get into any details because it might trigger somebody off, but that woke me up. And that's when I discovered where I was and what had happened. And right from the get-go, I grabbed a bunch of books and I got some hints on how to help myself. And I just started pounding away on a typewriter back then and putting it all down on paper, using a plastic bat to release a lot of my anger. I think the neighbors thought I was nuts. And then since then, I moved on with my life. I went to college. That was a wonderful thing. It taught me a lot. And then from there, I was just picked out of college to go work in the government.
You're a Canadian resident, right? You're in Canada?
Yeah, Victoria, BC.
Cool.
On the island.
On the island.
Yeah, where it's nice.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyways, I went to college, loved it there, taught me a lot of stuff about myself. And then from there, I went right to work into the BC government. And I will say that when I went through college, that I failed every grade in school. So it was rough.
You had to like relearn everything, huh?
Yeah, wow. But I was happy to be there. And then since then, I crafted the whole book. It's been sitting in a drawer for many years. And then just in the last few years, I knew it was there before, like through the news and everything, brain disease, brain disease, brain disease. And I knew they had it all wrong. But, you know, I was enjoying life, so I just held back on it. And then finally it just got to me and I'm like, I got to do this. And here I am today. Wow. And I have a wonderful life and a wonderful husband and 2 amazing grown adult children that amaze me every day.
Oh, that's amazing.
And yeah, so now I'm focused on this.
Yeah. So can you take me back to age 9? And I'm assuming you had an extreme trauma in your life.
Yes.
And you were diagnosed with schizophrenia. What was that like to be diagnosed?
Well, back then they really didn't tell you. I didn't find out till 3 years later when I was under care of Children's Services. I was made a ward of the court, and a social worker was kind enough to show me my file. And that's how I learned about it. But at 9 and 4 and around all those times, nobody approached me. Nobody tried to help me. People knew that I wasn't all there, but they left me there. And then I had a horrible experience at the hospital. Like nothing to do with me. It was just the stuff that I witnessed. Like I was only 14, patients being kicked to the ground and drugged. And the thing that I noticed the most were the nurses. They were always behind the desk. They never helped them. They never talked to them. They were just there to medicate them. And then the ones that didn't want to be medicated, they were tackled and held down on the ground. And then they just take them away. And so that's how I found out. And I was so deep in my psychosis that in my early 20s, I went to the library to just see what it was. And I read it and I'm like, no, that's not me. And then I was in denial. Do you want me to talk about the trauma that occurred, or should we bypass that?
No, you can. I think it's important. I know you don't want to trigger people, but and I don't want to trigger you or bring something out.
I won't. It's been years. I won't be triggered.
But it might help the audience. But also people are already wondering, the language, like when we say schizophrenia or we say psychosis, what does that mean? Like, what did it look like for you?
Oh, well, the way that I just say it is that it's a survival mechanism. Trauma, complex trauma or whatever can trigger that off. And it kind of makes you base-like. And you're in survival mode. And the reason it's there is because the person, the sufferer, is not equipped to handle or confront what happened to them. So they move into that world, and it's based on, what's in your culture. Every story isn't the same. There's multiple different reasons why people end up there. But I truly believe that it's repetitive abuse or trauma. And that trauma can be in different forms. It can be like yourself in a war, natural disaster, incest, rape. It's whatever is a threat to oneself.
It causes you to create another universe.
Exactly.
To cope with it.
Yeah.
Now, so when people ask, someone said, what did her time of schizophrenia look like? I think they're wondering, like, did you have delusions? Were you in another, can you get more specific about like, what was the experience of schizophrenia like?
Oh, okay. Severe hallucinations. My first one occurred when I was 11 years old. I was out playing in the ravine, and I had some kids with me, and I seen somebody this is true, dressed up as like a historical figure, like Robin Hood or something. But I know that I got that off a cartoon I watched. But to me, it was real. And I told those kids, he's got a knife. We better run. They're like, oh, I want to see. So I took them all there, but nothing there.
Wow.
So I screamed so loud and I scared the hell out of them. So that's hallucination. Hallucination is somebody knocked on the door once, a childhood home, and I went to answer it. And there was a woman dressed up in a black outfit, and she had a huge knife, and she was clanging it against inside the mailbox. And that's another example what happened. The voices were nonstop. I did not have any good voices. They were egging me on to kill myself. And there was a time when I went on a bridge and was going to jump. But instead, I went to the police station.
Is that where the title from your book came from?
Yeah. And then I pretty well had every symptom. But so that's what it was. It was a state of terror. The fear never left me. It was constant. I could hear people talking to me and what they were saying, but I couldn't grasp what they were saying. So you're basically, you're trapped.
And like another world, just another level of consciousness.
Yeah, you can't even see no way out. You don't even know you're there.
Wow.
The voices were quite violent. Anytime I wanted to do something positive, they were there. No, 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 kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself. So that's a little bit about what it was like to be in that state. And it never lets up. If I was to compare it to anything, like if anybody wanted to read up on this, I compare it to people that are in hospice that are dying. It's so similar to the dying process. So I would describe it as that.
It almost makes me want to cry just
We'll
hearing.
get it together. Hold up, girl.
No, stop it. That's what got us into this.
Don't fall apart on me.
No, I won't fall apart. It's just, I feel such compassion for you that you're in this state of terror from extreme trauma. And it's like you're trapped and nobody's really helping you. And I always get the sense that like people with diagnoses like schizophrenia are just kind of thrown away. Like you don't deserve to have therapy, or we don't want to ask you what's really happened to you. That doesn't really matter. You're too far gone. You know, did you experience anything like that?
But I had no recall of the trauma.
Wow.
I had no recall. Once the schizophrenia like moved in on me, everything else was wiped out. It was when I went through recovery, this incident triggered me off. And then that's when all the memories emerged.
Wow.
And it was pretty ugly.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
So what was your experience like being a patient in the mental health system, like from age 9, and, you know, like take me through what was your experience with therapists and psychiatrists?
I wasn't at 9 years old, I wasn't in the hospital. That's just when it started. When I was 14, I was going to the police station to try to talk about what was going on in my family, but I just shut down. So then I ended up in all the foster homes and everything. But during the hospital stay, nothing was done to me. I wasn't harmed in any way. They did tell me to take medications, but back then they didn't hover over you, and I don't know what they do now. So I just plucked them in the side of my mouth, do a swallow, open my mouth, show, yeah, took them, and then off to the washroom, I'd go and spit them out. So I never got a chance to experience what those drugs do. But I do think that they're not, I don't think you treat trauma with pills.
Yeah, you said you were a lucky one to not be medicated.
Yeah. So I witnessed a lot of abuse. I'm only 14 years old watching this. I was the youngest patient there. People twitching and wanting to talk, and there was no talk. It was like the nurses and then the patients. There was no communication. I just call it a babysitting facility.
Wow.
And the main thing was to get those people to take their drugs.
I don't think much has changed. I mean, it feels very similar now, you know.
Yeah, just take the pills. And I watch people. That was the most disturbing thing, to see a grown man thrown to the ground and all these orderlies hovering over him. And the only thing, he was just screaming that he didn't want to take the drugs. Oh, you're taking the drugs. And then the weirdest thing was when he was forced to do that, I looked around to see what was going on. And the nurses were just busy working along like it was normal.
Yeah.
It wasn't normal.
No.
Yeah, so that's pretty
interesting, because I would say, what year was that? Let's see. 15 years ago when I was in the hospital, I witnessed that too, where someone was held down in the room and force injected in front of me, and it traumatized me as just an onlooker. So I just don't think our mental health system realizes that you have trauma coming into it, but then they further traumatize you while you're in it, and things like that.
Exactly.
Perpetuate the trauma that the terror that you were experiencing, you know, the feeling of invalidation when a therapist doesn't even come to see you to talk to you, you know, that there's more trauma that happens. Yeah.
And then that experience taught me, like, I believe I was about 19 years old. I was having a very severe hallucination, and I couldn't get control of it, because usually they just come and go. But this one stuck to me. So I went to the hospital, desperate for help. So I'm sitting in the waiting room and the psychiatrist comes out and I said, I need help. I told her. And she goes, just a minute, I'll be back. And I thought, and the first thing I thought, oh God, she's going to get the orderlies. Left. Never went back. Never asked for help again.
That's all it took, was just a little bit of invalidation to let you go run.
Yeah, I left.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
Wow. So yeah, some people are asking in the audience, so you never took a med ever? Zero?
Never. Zero. Never.
How did you pull that off? Like, I'm just amazed. How did you keep your autonomy through all those years?
I didn't let schizophrenia own me. I always found ways to find hope, whether that was just being in nature. I was really into the arts, so just something beautiful to look at. And some of the people, like in school and everything, they say, oh, Tracey, you're so smart. And even the psychologist said that, Tracey, you're so smart, you're so bright, you're going to be okay.
Wow.
And that's actually when she said that to me, I used that during my recovery. So it was just a matter of like not letting it own me. Like I do simple things like holding on to furniture just to ground myself.
Wow.
And listening to people, what they said about me. Mm. And not the other stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I did it. Determination.
Wow.
I'm winning at this.
Your fighting spirit.
Yeah, I'm winning. You're not taking me down.
I love that. Now, somebody asked a really good question. How did your family treat you? And I know you have an orphanage history. So could you talk about being in group homes, orphanages, your family of origin? What was that like?
Okay. Well, I was in an orphanage at 4 years old. My mother and father had divorced. So my mother didn't want me. So my dad dropped me off at the orphanage and I stayed there. And then I came back home and my father was gone. My family, my mother was my abuser and my stepfather. My siblings kind of tormented me and weren't on my side. When I went through recovery, I left my entire family. I had to.
Don't blame you.
They weren't with me with it. They weren't willing to acknowledge that they had caused a lot of my problems.
Right.
They were actually quite abusive. And like even during it, my mother would always say, you tell anybody, I'll kill you. I'm a kid. So whatever. But the good news is I have reunited with a couple of my siblings in the past 10 years. Mm-hmm. And we have relationships.
Wow.
Yeah. That's after amazing. The fact that my mother passed away.
Wow.
That's how much control she had over us.
So you're pointing to something very interesting. I don't know if you've read about open dialogue.
Yes.
So open dialogue has a theory for people in the audience that people that display symptoms of psychosis or schizophrenia, I use these quotation marks because I just don't like the medical language, so please use it loosely. I'm just pointing to symptom clusters, but not the person. Okay. So anyway, open dialogue, they would say that a person that is displaying these symptoms is actually like the canary in the coal mine for a broken system. So in Tracey's case, she's kind of elucidating that because the family was the abusive ones and she was the one crying out like something is wrong. But instead of the family being healed, it's that Tracey carries the burden, that you're the sick one, you're the what they call the identified patient. So you're the black sheep, the identified patient, So what open dialogue does is, and we might do a conversation about this later, is that they bring in the whole family system. But, people have to be willing to talk about things we don't want to talk about. So in Tracey's case, they would have to talk about the abuse and we would talk about it in front of each other, not hiding or not secretive. And there would be a whole team of therapists and everybody would be supporting each other. And Tracey might even talk about her hallucinations openly and nobody would get afraid of it. We would just talk about it, So I just think that's interesting that, that pattern emerges when there's.
We did do that meeting. That meeting took place.
Well, and how did it go?
Well, I was in foster care, so my foster mom brought me to the meeting, and that's exactly what we were going to do. A psychologist was running it. Mm-hmm. And we went around the circles. Stepfather wasn't there, just siblings and my mother. And they talked about me and how I was affecting them. And then when the psychologist turns to me and goes, "Tracey, do you have anything to say?" And that's when I went to open my mouth. I started with, "My mom was so mean to me." Guess what happened? Mother walked out, meeting over.
Yeah.
So that didn't work for my family.
Oh, that's what happens. I just find it interesting. I did an internship as a therapist for about 14 months, and I saw this pattern emerge over and over again, that the person coming to therapy was like willing to work on their stuff and like talk about what was happening to them. But quite often the people that were causing the abuse in their family, they were off the hook, just living their life, doing what they want to do. But meanwhile, the person suffering the symptoms is the one suffering so bad.
Yeah.
Like we carry the burden instead of the family members that are causing the trauma to stop, It's like backwards. We medicate the ones that are being affected and we let the abusers off the hook.
Well, that's why I don't like the brain disease theory. It's letting everybody off the hook, or the chemical imbalance, or whatever they're going to call it. Everybody's off the hook.
Say more about that.
About the brain disease?
Well, because if I can say that, Tracey, you have a brain disease, you need to take these pills and go to therapy, then your mom can abuse. And is that what you mean?
Well, that was many years ago, but back then it wasn't like the brain disease wasn't everywhere, like on every mental health website. Yeah. So that's another reason I was lucky. That wasn't pushed upon me, but I feel that the brain disease not only protects the abusers, it lets families off the hook. And I'm not saying that it all comes out of families. And I make that point quite clear. I think by labeling it a brain disease, the professionals are off the hook. They don't have to conduct any kind of therapy. All they have to do is hold them, make sure they're on their meds. And I've recently read that they section them, and they have to sign here in Canada, sign a contract that they will take their medications. And if they don't, they're brought back to the hospital. I say get rid of the brain disease theory, the chemical imbalance, get rid of all that, and let's work on the real issues. I don't like the brain disease theory. Totally against it. Yeah. It needs to disappear. It's not helping anybody.
Right.
And it's psychiatry.
Yeah. And that is mentioned in the film Medicating Normal. We talk about how the chemical imbalance theory was never proven and was kind of like used for marketing, but patients believe it. We've had audiences where I say, how many people in the audience were told that you had a chemical imbalance? And like over 80% raise their hands. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to go.
It's definitely a perpetuated myth.
Yeah.
So in our pre-interview, you talked about kind of snapping out of it and coming back to reality. And I use that word really loosely too, because consensual reality is kind of what they call it. But can you talk about what led up to you snapping out of it? And how do you look back on your time in the other world?
Trigger alert. I'll just say that. I have 2 grown children, but at a time, my daughter, she was in diapers. I think she was like 3 or 4 months. And then my son, they're 4 years difference. Well, I was still in with my family, and was introduced to a man within my family circle. And we developed a relationship, and he moved into my house, and he had a daughter that was 9 years old. And he was putting cream on her vagina because she kept on getting infections. And one night, just before I was about to go to bed, I thought, oh, I'll check in on her and see how she's doing. So I walked in, and she had her legs spread, and he was putting the cream on in a very sensual way. And I said to him, you shouldn't be doing that. he said she likes it. So, but let's back up a minute, this guy. I'm so far out that, I mean, like, I can't even understand what anybody's telling me. So when I first met him, he had told me about an incident that he was on cocaine, and there was a couple of 11-year-olds in front of his apartment building. And he approached them and asked them for a blowjob. The one went with him. So anyways, he's telling me all this stuff, and it's triggering those memory boxes right off.
And you were already in a sensitive state, right? You're already in this alternative, extreme state.
Yeah, with no awareness why I'm there.
Right. Got it.
So anyway, so that happened. So I couldn't, so I thought, oh shit, I gotta save this kid. I gotta report this. So anyways, I decided to report, and I couldn't get a hold of his mother, but I got a hold of his sister, the sisters. And I told her what happened, and she said, we already suspected that.
Wow.
That was happening. And then I just said, I hope you do something about that. So anyways, I got him out of my house. He never harmed my children at all. But anyways, and then one night I was just laying in bed, and I just bolted upright. I had this memory of a green curtain. Back then in our family home, my parents had converted the dining room into the living room. So there was this green curtain, and I bolted upright, and I seen that green curtain. I'm like, oh shit, what the hell's behind it? Why am I seeing this? Because I actually had been seeing it for a while. And then boom, it was there. I saw what happened to me.
Wow.
And it was triggered off by what I had witnessed.
Wow.
And that's when I went into, I can't even describe it. It was so horrible. That's when I kicked in and went to the doctors, my family physician. First thing she did was prescription. I was actually hyperventilating in her office because all this stuff that had been stuffed is all coming up, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I went, she gave the meds, but then when I got home and I closed the door, by then I had removed my children from the home because I didn't want them witnessing any of this. I found somewhere safe for them to go. I had the pills, and I looked at them and I said, can I swear? Can I swear?
Please. Yeah. You already did. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm not taking these pills.
Yeah.
And I got rid of them. And that's when I went totally into recovery.
Wow.
And that's what triggered it off. And then to come out of the psychosis part, roughly a month. That's all it took.
Took a month.
As soon as those memories can't, like, they weren't just coming out casually. I was living there again. So what I did was that I wrote everything down. And when I wrote everything down, it was funny because when I look back at it, like at that time, it'd be like normal stuff, and then the schizophrenic language, and then a little bit of normal. And that's because my mind wasn't ready to see all of it.
Wow.
So and then I had different tools to use, and that went on for quite a long time.
Yeah,
it wasn't like I just came out of it. It was like it took years to correct all these behaviors and trust the real world. And that's how it went.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You told me during your pre-interview that during that month that the memories were coming up, that you would cry and that you would grieve. Yeah. And you would hit things and you would process it. Can you tell me what that was like?
It was really intense, and it was painful, like really painful. I found that helped me the most is like I went to Toys R Us and I bought this big ass plastic bat that kids play with.
Yeah.
Just pounding on my bed, and then I would just collapse, and then then the anger would turn to sadness, like a deep sadness. And then that would end, and then it would be back to crying. And basically, I just had a disconnect of my emotions to the experience of trauma. So I had to bring those two together. If I was to describe what I look like, anybody seen the Exorcist film? It was crazy.
Isn't it? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah. So that's basically how it all came together.
That's amazing.
To do those things.
You like found your own recovery. No, but there's no model that says, you know, beat the shit out of your, you know, apartment and grieve and cry and pull up the feelings and grieve and cry and process that by yourself.
No, I truly believe that if people have this condition, they need to release those emotions. And they have to be fearless about it, because let me tell you, recovery, a beautiful thing. Wow. I've accomplished a lot with my life since then.
Yeah, we'll get to the recovery part in just a minute, but I want to read some of the comments that are coming through, because everybody's very just fascinated. A person said, I love that you didn't take one medication. That's very empowering. Another person said, this is so riveting. I'm a mother of a child with serious mental illness. I believe my son's trauma repetitive witness to animal torture. Documentaries about factory farms, farm animal abuse, and slaughterhouses. He also had botched surgery and a vasectomy at 20 years old. So, oh good, the question arrived. How did Tracey overcome her illness? So we just talked about that. Yeah. And the next comment is Ron Coleman in Scotland, who has similar schizophrenia-induced trauma. He was raped multiple times by a Catholic priest. He says that you are not the problem. The problem is the problem. So that kind of is what we talked about, where the family, the system, the trauma, the abuse was the problem, not Tracey, you know? Yeah. And then last one, it says, it absolutely lets others who have played a role in the manifestation of the creation of the mental health issues off the hook in many situations. Yeah. So just what we just talked about. Yeah. And so, yeah, let's move into the recovery part. What does recovery mean to you? And what did that look like?
Well, I've been recovered for over 20 years. No symptoms, never went back there. Recovery to me means if something comes up, life is hard, feel it right away. I do not hesitate to cry if I need to cry. And that's what recovery is to me. Like, don't let those emotions get stuck. Right. And once you release all those emotions, you're done with schizophrenia. You're done with it all. And after that, it's basically self-management. The biggest thing that I had to learn was to keep away from abusive people, because there's such a connection there. Hey, I was raised in it. So recovery means pretty well doing whatever you want to do. Go to school, write a book, get married, explore your passion. That's what recovery is about to me. I can pretty well do whatever I put my mind on, I'm doing it. Hard work to get there, but since my recovery, never had a hallucination, never heard another voice. Wow. All the symptoms. I'm pretty grounded in reality now.
Wow.
Yeah.
You just became yourself. You grieved, you worked through those emotions, you let out a lot of things that were trapped, and then it allowed for the Tracey to come through.
Yeah. And that Tracey that came through, I needed to get to know her. I'll just talk a little bit about this. During the recovery process, I was terrified of it, but I can remember going into my kitchen, and I think I was putting a coffee cup away or whatever. I was kind of taking a break from all the emotional stuff. And I just leaned against the counter and I said to myself, oh God, am I gonna be able to make it in the real world? That was my greatest fear. Was I gonna be able to do this? What was it gonna be like? Can I handle it? But then I just pressed ahead. So that was one of my greatest fears. What will people expect out of me? Well, I need to go to college. Well, I need to do this. That was a hinder, but push through. So all I can say, recovery to me is just having a good life and supporting yourself, believing in yourself, and don't let that brain disease theory take anything away from you.
Wow. Someone said, amazing lady you are, Tracey. Well done. Into the fire and you came out risen.
Thank you. Whoever said that.
Couldn't said it better myself.
Yeah.
So there's a couple more comments.
Okay.
One says, no meds have helped my adult daughter's psychosis and delusions. They've only suppressed them to a zombie level. She's tapering off 8 months of tapering now, and she is in art therapy because it's very difficult for her to communicate, and she's finally starting to come out of it. I am so happy for you. Your story is inspiring. It says, terrible that your mom left therapy. Shame on her. Also, it's very sad for her. She must have had so much trauma herself.
Yes, of course she did. And I'll just mention this little part. I left the family. I moved out to BC. I'm originally from Ontario, Toronto. Grabbed my kids, come on, let's go. We're out of here. Because there was a little thing going on with my other sister about my mother wanting to get visiting rights. And she threatened me with that. And I said, no, you're not going to have anything to do with my children. I'm not risking that. Yeah. But one of the last things that she said to me when I confronted her, she said, you can do anything to kids. They always survive.
Oh my God.
Those were her last words. And then that was click on the phone. But I'm also going to tell you another thing. Whatever's going on in the family, I don't really blame anybody. You know, my mother was sick. It made us sick. But near the end, before she passed away, I sent her a letter. And I told her that I forgave her.
Wow.
Never had a relationship with her, but I told her I forgave her.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's one of the questions is, what is the secret to your strength and faith in yourself? You just said it takes a lot of strength, you know?
Yeah, it does. It's hard. I just always believed that there was something else there for me, something out there, and I was searching for it. And I held on to that belief. And I made one goal. I want to be happy. And I went step by step to get there. Make a goal. You want to be happy. You don't want to suffer. Even if it's a small goal, like, you know, I got to get out of bed, I got to make my bed. That's a goal. Build your self-esteem. And when you're ready, it's all going to unfold. And be willing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So let's close out with, can you talk a little bit about your book and what was that process like and when is it coming out?
Okay. I just want to mention one thing before I talk about that.
Sure.
About Medicating Normal. I've known about you guys for a while. I do a lot of research to see what's going on, and I stumbled onto your website, and I did watch it.
Cool.
And that was, I think that was last year. I can't give you a date. And that was inspiring to me, to know that people were on this. And lots of mental health people are all coming together and doing different things and trying to make a change. And I find what you guys are doing is quite inspiring, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
And anybody who hasn't seen the film, you gotta see it.
Oh, thank you for the nice plug.
You're welcome. Okay, back to the question. What was the question again?
Tell us about your book. How did you write it? What was that process like for you? And when is it coming out?
Okay, I wrote my first draft while I was sick, going through recovery. So I managed to capture the pain, the sorrow, everything in it. And anyways, I did that. That's my honey. Did that, and then my book or whatever's been sitting there because back in the day when I went to publish it, I was threatened by my family, and I wasn't strong enough to take that on. And now I'm where I'm at, and the book will be out next month, and it takes readers through the human process of schizophrenia, in and out, and it shows how recovery can happen for a lot of people.
Wow.
I put the tools in. I just spoke my mind and said the way it was. And I think a lot of people are going to be helped by it.
And where can people buy it? And what's it called?
It's called, what is it called? The Girl Over the Bridge. And it will be available next month. There's a group of us working on it, so I can't really say how fast they're gonna work. Me, it was yesterday. But we're hoping for a release date of June.
And will they be able to buy it on Amazon, or how do they buy it?
Yeah, I'm gonna put a link on my Twitter.
Okay, cool.
And I also have my own website. I'll put a link there too.
Can you say the website or not yet?
Oh, it's already up.
Oh, what is it? No, I mean, can you say it so people can follow you?
Oh, for the Twitter or the website?
Oh, all of it.
Oh, Twitter, I'm just under Tracey Higgins. And my website is called www.fullrecoveryfromschizophrenia.ca.
Perfect.
I haven't done much work on it.
That's okay. You're gonna get lots of fans now, so you better hurry up.
Yeah. I actually put a little like a mental health hub on it for everybody, like a forum, so people can come in and talk and debate or whatever they want to do. But I haven't done any work on it. But there's lots of articles disputing the brain disease on there from professionals.
Well, it's been a wonderful hour I've spent with you. There's a lot of still more comments. Let me see if I should read any leftovers. Let's see. Hold on. We got, oh, you sound so normal, but I say that with all due respect.
I am normal.
And she was normal when she had symptoms because she was reacting to what was traumatic.
Exactly. Right? Response to it. I was responding to it.
Another person says, wow, you are so inspiring. Have you done any work with the inner child?
Oh, that inner child is with me. We've integrated.
Wow.
Yeah, this is me.
That's you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I have heard that people with hallucinations or schizophrenia suffer from low B3 or niacin. I love the open dialogue process, and I love your statement of, I don't think you treat trauma with pills. Yes, yes, yes. I've been telling people that for many years. I'm so glad I saw your talk today.
Thank you.
Actually, somebody said, I'm so looking forward to reading your book.
Thank you.
That's awesome. All right, so we'll just close out now.
Okay.
Thank you all so much for joining this live discussion. If you haven't seen Medicating Normal yet, please check out our website at medicatingnormal.com. You can see a list of upcoming screenings, or you can check out the events tab on our Facebook page. We add more screenings there and we update that list frequently. We currently release new videos on our YouTube channel, Medicating Normal, every Wednesday and Friday. One was just released at noon about benzodiazepines. And we'll have more live Facebook interviews just like this one. Coming up, we have Dr. Roger McFillin. He's a board certified psychologist. We have Kelly Fukrod. She'll be speaking on liberation from the psychiatric system. And we have Jacob Steganga. I can't ever say his last name. Jacob Steganga on medical nihilism. Last thing, Tracey, somebody just asked, can you please spell out your Twitter handle? Is it at?
Oh, let me check.
You look it up while I read the rest. Okay. Lastly, if you'd like to support our outreach efforts to bring the film and more conversations like this one, you can make a donation, big or small, at medicatingnormal.com/donate. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Tracey, for spending an hour with us. And did you find it?
I'm looking. I'm not really good at Twitter here.
I hear you.
Hold on.
That's how I met you, though. Tracey commented on one of my posts and said she wanted to share her story, and I was like, well, I'm willing to listen. Let's do it. Here we go. I found it.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ange.
At Tracey, but Tracey with an E. So at TRACEY, capital H, 962-4274. But listen, just type in Tracey Higgins and it'll pop right up. It says writer-Tracey Higgins.
Awesome.
That's it. And the name of her book, lastly, is The Girl on the Bridge.
Yes.
The Girl on the Bridge, coming in June. And we'll be sure to post that on our Medicating Normal website so you see it when it comes out.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you in the audience. Thank you, Tracey. I'm amazed. I'm in awe of your human spirit. I can relate to it because I've had to fight like hell to get my life back. So I know what that takes.
Yeah.
And it's not easy when you realize it's me that is going to have to take it back. Like nobody's going to give it to me, you know?
True.
Well, thank you, Tracey.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.